Maria stood frozen in the doorway, the yellowed photograph trembling in her hands as she stared at the small figure curled up against her bakery's back steps. For 3 weeks she had left day-old bread and pastries wrapped in wax paper, watching from the window as they disappeared by morning. But tonight, as rain pelted the cobblestones and lightning illuminated the boy's gaunt face, she finally understood why he looked so hauntingly familiar. The resemblance was unmistakable. Those same determined eyes and gentle brow that she'd tried desperately to forget for 20 years now returned to her doorstep like a ghost from her past. Could this child be connected to the secret Maria had buried decades ago, the one that cost her everything she once held dear? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional tales that remind us how life's most painful moments can lead to unexpected healing. The morning air filled with the scent of fresh bread as Maria kneaded dough with practiced hands. 4 a.m. and she was already 2 hours into her day, the rhythm of her work a comfort that had sustained her through decades of solitude. The small neighborhood bakery, tucked between a laundromat and a hardware store that had seen better days, wasn't much, but it was hers. "You're up early again," came a voice from the doorway. Maria didn't look up. "Same as always, Sophia." Her elderly neighbor, wrapped in a faded shawl despite the summer heat, shuffled in with her cane tapping against the worn tile floor. Sophia was the closest thing Maria had to family in this neighborhood, the only person who knew fragments of her past. "You look tired," Sophia said, settling onto the stool by the counter. "Still leaving food for that boy?" Maria nodded, her hands never stopping their work. "He took the bread and pastries again last night, and a bottle of water I left." "You should call the police," Sophia said, her voice gentle but firm. "A child on the streets, it's not right." "And what will they do? Put him in the system?" Maria's voice hardened. "You know what happens to children there?" Sophia's eyes softened with understanding. They both knew why Maria couldn't bring herself to make that call. "Did you speak to him?" "No." Maria shaped the dough into a perfect round. "He's gone before sunrise, just takes the food and disappears." For 3 weeks now, this had been their ritual. The boy appeared after midnight, huddled against the bakery's back door, thin arms wrapped around even thinner legs. Maria would watch from her upstairs window, her heart aching with a familiar pain she couldn't name. By dawn, he'd vanish, leaving only crumbs and an empty water bottle. Maria had tried staying up later, rising earlier, but somehow he always sensed her presence and fled. There was something about him, something in his eyes during those brief glimpses that tugged at memories she'd long buried under layers of flour and sugar and routine. "I was young once, too," she whispered, more to herself than to Sophia. "Scared. Nowhere to go." Sophia reached across the counter to still Maria's hands. "That was different. You were 18. He can't be more than 10. Maria looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Where is his mother? Who leaves a child to sleep? On the streets? The questions hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken history. Later, as the first customers arrived for their morning bread, Maria moved on autopilot, smiling and chatting, while her mind remained fixed on the boy. Mrs. Alvarez from the corner apartment gossiped about seeing a little vagrant in the alley. Mr. Peterson from the bookstore suggested someone should do something about these street kids before they start stealing. Maria said nothing, just handed over their usual orders with practiced efficiency. When the morning rush subsided, she pulled a loaf of sourdough from the oven. The boy seemed to prefer it to the sweeter breads. She wrapped it carefully in wax paper, along with yesterday's unsold cinnamon rolls and a small container of butter. Tonight, she would add cheese and fruit, something substantial. As she worked, her mind drifted to another time, another life. The tiny apartment above her parents' restaurant, the sickness in her stomach each morning, the weight of shame and fear as her body changed. Antonio's face when she told him, a mixture of shock and something else. Was it wonder? Panic? She never got to know. His family moved away the next week, leaving nothing but rumors and a hollow ache that never quite healed. "You can't save everyone," Sophia had told her back then. Now, 20 years later, those words echoed as Maria prepared food for a nameless boy with familiar eyes. That night, she left her offering at the back door as usual, but added a note, written in careful block letters, "My name is Maria. What's yours?" From her window, she watched and waited, the photograph she'd found years ago clutched in her hand. A young Antonio with his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at a joke long forgotten. In the boy's face, she saw echoes of that smile. It couldn't be possible, she told herself, and yet the possibility haunted her through the long, sleepless night. The note remained untouched, but the food disappeared. 3 more nights passed this way, each morning bringing empty containers, but no response. Maria began leaving small gifts alongside the food. A knit cap one night, a clean t-shirt the next. These too vanished, giving her hope that somehow she was helping. Sunday was her only day off. The bakery closed, and Maria usually spent the hours cleaning her small apartment above the shop or catching up on sleep. Today, however, restlessness drove her to the rarely entered attic space, where cardboard boxes held the remnants of her former life. Dust motes danced in the slanted light as she pulled down the first box. Inside lay neatly folded baby clothes she'd never used, a small stuffed bear, and hospital paperwork with smudged ink. Maria's hands trembled as she set these aside. 20 years hadn't dulled the ache. The second box contained photographs. Maria sitting on her parents' porch. Maria in her first bakery apron. Maria and Antonio at the beach, at the fair, outside the old movie theater. Her fingers lingered on his face. The sharp jawline, the eyes that crinkled when he laughed, the unruly dark hair that never stayed combed. "Where did you go?" she whispered, though she knew the answer. His family had moved back to Spain after his father's business failed. There had been promises to write, to call, to return. None had materialized. By the time she realized she was pregnant, Antonio Merlo had vanished from her world. At the bottom of the box lay a large envelope. Maria hesitated before opening it, knowing what she would find. The adoption papers, final and irreversible. She had been 18, abandoned and terrified. Her strict Catholic parents had given her 2 choices: marry quickly or give up the baby. With Antonio gone and no prospects, the decision had been made for her. The paperwork revealed little she didn't already know. Closed adoption, all records sealed. A baby boy born on April 17th, healthy at 7 pounds, 3 ounces. No name given, that right belonged to his new parents. Maria had held him just once before the nurse took him away. Behind the paperwork lay one final photograph, a hospital snapshot of her son, wrapped in a blue blanket, eyes squinted against the harsh light. The only image she had of him. She'd memorized every detail of that tiny face, wondering for years if his eyes would darken to match Antonio's or remain light like hers. A noise from downstairs startled her. Maria listened, heart pounding. The back door rattled slightly, unusual for daylight hours. Quietly, she descended the attic stairs, the photograph still clutched in her hand. Through the apartment window overlooking the alley, she saw him, the boy, thinking the bakery empty on Sundays, boldly checking the back step for food. In daylight, the resemblance was even more striking. The same widow's peak as Antonio, the same slight cleft in the chin. Without thinking, Maria rushed down to the bakery, through the kitchen, toward the back door. By the time she reached it, the boy was already retreating, a wary animal sensing. "Danger! Wait!" she called, her voice cracking. "Please!" He froze, one foot already in motion, poised for flight. Turned slowly. In the harsh sunlight, she could see him clearly for the first time, thin to the point of gauntness, clothes dirty and too small, dark hair matted and overlong. But his eyes, those were Antonio's eyes, deep brown and intelligent. Maria's hand closed convulsively around the photograph, crumpling its edge. It couldn't be. The timing was impossible. Her son would be 20 now, a young man, not this child of 10 or 11. Yet The resemblance, I won't hurt you, she said softly, holding out her empty hand. Are you hungry? I can make you something fresh. The boy's gaze darted from her face to her outstretched hand, to the open door behind her that promised warmth. And food. For a moment, Maria thought he would run. Then his stomach growled audibly, and his shoulders slumped in defeat. Okay, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The first word she'd heard him speak, Maria stepped aside, allowing him space to enter without feeling trapped. As he passed, she caught a glimpse of the photograph still in her other hand, the image of baby Antonio next to the wary face of this child. And her breath caught. The resemblance wasn't just to Antonio. It was to Antonio's family, to the Merlots. The boy looked like he could be Antonio's son or grandson. The boy sat at Maria's kitchen table, devouring a ham sandwich as if it might disappear at any moment. His eyes never stopped moving, cataloging exits, assessing threats. Maria recognized the behavior, the constant vigilance of someone who had learned the hard way that safety was temporary. There's more if you're still hungry, she said, keeping her distance. And milk. He nodded but didn't speak, cramming the last bite into his mouth. Maria slid the glass of milk closer to him, followed by a plate of cookies. The photograph was tucked safely in her apron pocket, questions burning on her tongue. My name is Maria, she tried again. I own this bakery. The boy swallowed, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. I know. I read your note. His voice was soft but clear, with no trace of an accent. Not Spanish then, as she'd half expected. And you are? Maria prompted gently. A long pause. She could almost see him weighing the risks of truth against lies. Leo, he finally said. My name is Leo. Leo, she repeated, tasting the name. Short for Leonard. Yeah, Leopold? Just Leo. His eyes narrowed slightly. Are you going to call the cops? Maria shook her head. No, unless you've done something that requires police attention. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, gone so quickly she might have imagined it. No, just sleeping where I shouldn't, I guess. Where should you be sleeping, Leo? Maria asked, keeping her tone conversational as she busied herself wiping down the counter. Where's home? The wariness returned instantly. Around. Parents? Family? Leo stared at his empty plate. Can I have another sandwich? Maria nodded, recognizing the deflection, but not pushing. As she assembled more food, she studied him from the corner of her eye, clean beneath the surface dirt. No visible bruises or signs of physical abuse. Malnourished, certainly, but recently, not chronically. A runaway then, not a long-term street child. How old are you, Leo? 10. He paused. Almost 11. Maria placed the second sandwich before him, along with sliced apples and more milk. And how long have you been sleeping behind my bakery? Leo shrugged. Few weeks. It's safe there. Nobody bothers me. Except me, Maria said with a small smile. You leave food, Leo said simply. That's not bothering. Thunder rumbled outside and rain began to patter against the windows. Leo's shoulders tensed, his eyes darting to the door. You can stay until it passes, Maria offered, gesturing to the storm. It's my day off. No customers today. Leo seemed to weigh this, glancing between the gathering storm and the remaining food. Finally he nodded. Thank you for the clothes, he said suddenly. And the hat. Maria smiled, something warm unfurling in her chest. You're welcome. They fit okay? Yeah. Leo shifted uncomfortably. I can't pay you back. I don't expect payment, Maria said. I don't like to think of anyone going hungry, especially not She caught herself. Especially not when I have plenty to share. Leo's eyes, so like Antonio's, studied her face, as if searching for deception. Why are you helping me? The question caught her off guard. In the photograph in her pocket, Antonio smiled up at her from 20 years ago. On the table before her sat a boy with his eyes, his jawline, his way of tilting his head when asking a question. Because someone once should have helped me, she said finally, and didn't. Something passed between them then, a recognition perhaps, of shared experience. Leo nodded slowly. Can I ask you something, Leo? Maria ventured. When he didn't object, she continued, "Why this bakery? There are shelters in the city. Places where they help children." Leo's face closed off immediately. "They'd send me back." "Back where?" "It doesn't matter." He stood abruptly. "I should go. Thanks for the food." "The storm," Maria began, but Leo was already heading for the door, his thin shoulders set in a determined line. "I've been in worse." Maria found herself following him. "Wait, at least take some food with you and," she hesitated, "if you need a safe place to sleep tonight, the back door will be unlocked. There's a storeroom with flour sacks, softer than concrete." Leo paused, his hand on the doorknob. For a moment, Maria thought he would refuse. "Maybe," he said finally. "Thanks." Then he was gone, slipping into the rain like a shadow, leaving Maria with questions multiplying in her mind and a crumpled photograph burning a hole in her pocket. Monday morning arrived with lingering puddles from the night storm and a bakery storeroom that showed signs of occupation, a depression in the flour sacks, a neatly folded blanket Maria had left out. Leo himself was gone, but he had been there. It was enough to lighten Maria's steps as she prepared the day's first batch of bread. "You look different today," Sophia commented, arriving for her usual morning coffee. Something happened. Maria hesitated, then nodded toward the back. "The boy?" "His name is Leo. He came inside yesterday during the storm. We talked." Sophia's eyebrows shot up. "And?" "And nothing," Maria said, sliding a fresh pastry across the counter. "He ate. We talked a little. He slept in the storeroom last night." "Maria," Sophia said, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper, "you can't just take in street children. There are laws, procedures." "I didn't take him in," Maria protested. "I offered shelter from the rain, food. What was I supposed to do? Send him back out in the storm?" Sophia sighed, reaching for Maria's hand. "Show me." "Show you what?" "Whatever it is you're not telling me." "I know that look, Maria Reyes. 20 years I've known you. You're keeping something back." Maria hesitated, then pulled the photograph from her apron pocket, now creased from constant handling. She placed it on the counter between them. "It's not possible," she said softly. "The timing is all wrong, but look at him, Sophia. Look at his eyes." Sophia studied the old photograph, her lined face giving nothing away. "Antonio," she said finally. "Your Antonio. And the boy looks just like him, like he could be his son." Maria's voice trembled. "But that would mean your son grew up and had a child of his own," Sophia finished, her eyes sharp. "A 10-year-old boy." The implication hung between them. Maria's son would be 20 now, old enough to have fathered a child. "It's not possible," Maria repeated, but with less conviction. "It's just a coincidence. The Merlot family has strong genes, that's all." Sophia handed back the photograph. "You said he told you his name is Leo?" Maria nodded. "Did he say anything else? Where he's from? Why he's alone?" "No." He shut down when I asked. Maria began arranging fresh rolls in the display case, her movements mechanical. "But he was scared of something, Sophia. Someone. He said they'd send me back when I mentioned shelters." Sophia's face softened with concern. "Foster care, perhaps? Or an abusive home?" "I don't know, but I can't just—" The bell above the door jingled as Mrs. Alvarez bustled in, ending their private conversation. Throughout the morning rush, Maria found herself glancing at the back door, wondering if Leo would return. By closing time, there was still no sign of him. "You should eat," Sophia said, returning as Maria was locking up. "You've been watching that door all day." "He'll come back when he's hungry," Maria said, trying to convince herself as much as Sophia. "And when he does?" "What then, Maria? What are you planning?" Maria sighed, leading the way upstairs to her apartment. "I don't know. I just want to help him." "Because he reminds you of Antonio? Or because of what might have been?" The question struck too close to the heart of things. Maria busied herself making tea, avoiding Sophia's perceptive gaze. "You gave your son up for a reason," Sophia said gently. "You were young, alone. You couldn't provide for him." "I know that," Maria snapped, the teacup rattling in its saucer. "Don't you think I know that? Every day for 20 years I've known that. Then what are you doing now? This boy, even if by some miracle he is connected to your past, he isn't yours to save." Maria turned, tears threatening. "Then whose is he, Sophia? Tell me that. Whose responsibility is a child sleeping on the streets? The state? The system that he's clearly running from? Who?" Sophia's expression softened. "Oh, Maria, you haven't changed since you were 18. Still trying to fix broken things with nothing but determination and a good heart." She sighed. "Just be careful, for both your sakes." After Sophia left, Maria sat by her window, overlooking the alley, waiting. She'd left the storeroom door unlocked again, a fresh blanket folded inside, alongside a paper bag containing a sandwich, fruit and cookies. A small note tucked inside read, "You're welcome any time." Maria, around midnight, a small figure slipped into the alley. Maria held her breath as Leo approached the bakery's back door, checking in all directions before quickly disappearing inside. He had returned. For tonight at least, he was safe. Maria pressed her hand against the cool window glass, a prayer of gratitude on her lips. Tomorrow, somehow, she would find a way to learn more, to understand what forces had brought this child to her doorstep, and whether the impossible connection she sensed could possibly be real. For 3 nights, their strange arrangement continued. Leo would appear after the bakery closed, sleep on the flour sacks, and be gone before dawn. Maria left food, clean clothes, and once a small battery-powered radio. They barely spoke, just brief exchanges when their paths crossed. Yet something was building between them, a fragile trust that Maria was careful not to push. On the 4th night, thunder cracked overhead, shaking the old building's foundations. Rain pounded the streets in sheets, flooding the alley where the drainage had never worked properly. Maria, unable to sleep through the storm, sat at her kitchen table with a mug of tea when she heard it. A cry from below, sharp with fear. She found Leo in the storeroom, thrashing in his sleep, the blankets twisted around him like restraints. "No," he whimpered. "Please don't. I'll be good. Don't put me in there." "Leo," Maria called softly from the doorway, not wanting to startle him. "Leo, wake up. You're dreaming." His eyes flew open, wild and unfocused. For a moment, he didn't seem to recognize her. Then awareness returned, followed quickly by embarrassment. "Sorry," he mumbled, pulling the blanket tighter. "Did I wake you up?" Maria shook her head. "The storm kept me awake." She hesitated. "Would you like some hot chocolate? Upstairs is drier than down here." Leo glanced at the ceiling, where water had begun to seep through a crack, dripping steadily onto the floor. "Okay," he agreed, gathering his few possessions, a backpack, the radio, a small pocket knife that Maria pretended not to notice. Upstairs, Leo perched uneasily on the edge of her sofa, eyes taking in the modest apartment, the faded armchair, the small television, the bookshelf filled with cookbooks and romance novels. "It's not much," Maria said, misreading his expression, "but it's home." "It's nice," Leo said quietly. "Warm." Maria busied herself in the kitchenette, heating milk, measuring cocoa powder and sugar. "Bad dream?" she asked casually, her back to him. Leo was silent for so long that she thought he wouldn't answer. "They lock you in the closet," he finally said, his voice flat. "If you mess up, sometimes all night." Maria's hand stilled on the spoon. "Who does, Leo?" "The Ransoms. My Fosters. Parents." He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. 3 kids, 1 bathroom. If you take too long, or if you use too much toilet paper, or if you forget to put down the seat, closet time. Maria turned, her heart in her throat. "That's why you ran away," Leo shrugged. "One of the reasons." "How long were you with them?" 8 months, since the accident." Maria brought 2 mugs to the coffee table, sitting across from him. "What accident, Leo?" His face closed off. "Just an accident. My parents died." "I'm so sorry," Maria said softly. "Was that when you entered foster care?" Leo nodded, sipping his hot chocolate. "They were nice, my real parents. We had a house. I had my own room." His voice caught. "We were driving home from my baseball game. Dad was saying I did good, even though I struck out twice. Then there was a truck." He trailed off, staring into his mug. Maria's heart ached for him, this child who had lost everything. "The system is supposed to help children like you." she said. "There must be someone you can report the ransoms to." Leo's laugh was bitter beyond his years. "Nobody believes the foster kid. They think we make stuff up to get attention." He set down his mug. "Besides, I'm not going back. Not to them, not to another placement. I came here to find someone." Maria's pulse quickened. "Find who?" Leo hesitated, studying her face. "My birth mother. I was adopted when I was a baby. I found papers in my adoptive parents' bedroom after they died, before the state took me." "You know her name?" "Your birth mother?" Maria asked, her voice carefully neutral. Leo shook his head. "The adoption was closed. But I have this." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a worn envelope. "It says I was born at St. Mary's Hospital on April 17th, and that my birth mother worked at a bakery in this neighborhood." He looked up at her, his expression hopeful yet guarded. "I thought maybe someone around here might remember." Maria's world tilted. April 17th. The same hospital where she had given birth 20 years ago to a son she had held just once before. Signing him away. But the timing was impossible. Leo was 10, not 20. "And yet, what about your birth father?" she asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Was there any information about him?" "Just a name," Leo said. "Antonio Merlo." The mug slipped from Maria's hand, shattering on the floor as the room began to spin around her. "Are you okay?" Leo asked, jumping up, as Maria stared at the shattered ceramic on the floor. "Yes," she whispered, though she wasn't, not at all. "Just clumsy. Don't move. There's glass everywhere." She fumbled for paper towels, her mind racing. Antonio Merlo. There could be no mistake. But how? Her son would be 20 now, not old enough to be Leo's father unless her son had become a father at 10 years old. Impossible. "Let me..." "Help," Leo said, kneeling to pick up the larger shards. "Careful," Maria warned automatically, mother-like. The realization struck her then. Leo wasn't her grandson. The timing made no sense. But could he possibly be? No, that was even more impossible. "Antonio Merlo," she said, testing the name. "Your birth father. Do you know anything else about him?" Leo shook his head. "Just the name, and that he knew my birth mother." He glanced up at her, suddenly suspicious. "Why? Do you know him?" Maria hesitated. "I knew an Antonio Merlo many years ago." She forced a smile. "It's not an uncommon name, though." Leo's eyes, Antonio's eyes, lit with excitement. "You knew him? Here? In this neighborhood?" "It was a long time ago, Leo," Maria said carefully. 20 years at least." "That fits," Leo exclaimed. "The papers said the adoption happened 20 years ago." Maria's hands stilled. 20? But you're 10? Leo frowned. "The papers are from 20 years ago, my birth certificate and the adoption records." He pulled the envelope from his backpack, again extracting yellowed documents. "See, the dates all say 2005. Maria took the papers with trembling hands. There it was in faded type. Date of birth, April 17th, 2005. Mother's name, redacted. Father's name, Antonio Merlo. "But you said you're 10, Maria repeated, feeling as though she were in a dream. "Almost 11, Leo corrected. "I was born in 2014. These are my brother's papers. My parents, my adoptive parents, they told me I had an older brother who died as a baby. After the accident, I found these with my own adoption papers. Same birth mother, same father, same bakery mentioned." He looked at her intently. "I thought if I could find my birth mother, maybe I wouldn't have to go back to the ransoms." Maria sat heavily on the sofa, the papers clutched in her hand. Not her grandson, not impossible at all. Her son, her first child, the one she had given up, had died. And 10 years later, the same adoption agency had placed Antonio's second child with the same family. "I'm sorry about your brother," she said softly. "Did your parents tell you anything else about him?" Leo shook his head. "Just that he was sick, born with a heart problem." He took back the papers carefully. "I don't even know his name. They never talked about him much. But we had the same birth parents. That's something, right?" Maria nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "Do you think you could help me?" Leo asked, his voice smaller now. "Find my birth mother, I mean? If you knew my father..." I'll try, Maria promised, her mind still struggling to process everything. Her son, her firstborn, was gone. Had been gone for years, without her ever knowing. And here was his brother, Antonio's second child, with whom? Who had Antonio started a family with after leaving her? It's late, she said finally. You should try to sleep more. We both should. Tomorrow we can figure things out, Leo nodded, gathering his backpack. Should I go back downstairs? The question hung in the air. Maria looked at the small, too thin boy before her, the brother of the child she had carried, Antonio's son, and made a decision. The couch pulls out into a bed, she said. You'll be more comfortable here. The storeroom leaks. The next morning, Maria woke to the unfamiliar sound of movement in her apartment. For a moment, she was disoriented. Then the events of the night came rushing back. Leo, Antonio, her lost son. She found Leo in the kitchen, attempting to make toast. Sorry, he said when he saw her. I was hungry. It's fine, Maria assured him, but I'm a baker. Let me make you a proper breakfast. As she cooked eggs and heated fresh rolls from yesterday's baking, Maria watched Leo from the corner of her eye. In daylight, the resemblance to Antonio was even more pronounced. The same cowlick at the crown of his head, the same way of rubbing his nose when thinking. What will you do today? She asked casually, sliding a plate in front of him. Leo shrugged. Keep looking, I guess, for my birth mother. Maria nodded. What if you helped me in the bakery today? Just for a few hours. I could use an extra pair of hands, and it would give me time to think about how to help you search. Leo considered this, his expression cautious. You'd pay me? Room and board, Maria said. And a little spending money, if you're interested. I've never baked anything before. Everyone starts somewhere. Maria smiled. I'll teach you. And so began Leo's apprenticeship. Maria showed him how to measure flour, how to tell when dough had risen properly, how to shape rolls. To her surprise, he took to it naturally, his small hands deft and sure, after just a few demonstrations. You're a quick learner, she told him, watching as he expertly braided a loaf of challah. Leo smiled. A real smile, the first she'd seen, and for a moment Maria's heart stopped. It was Antonio's smile, down to the slight dimple in his right cheek. My mom used to say that too, he said softly. Then his smile faded. My adoptive mom, I mean. Maria nodded, understanding the correction. She sounds like she was a good mother. She was. Leo focused on the dough, blinking rapidly. They both were. Good parents. Maria placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. I'm sure they were, to have raised such a remarkable young man. Leo looked up at her, his eyes wet but determined. Will you really help me find her? My birth mother? Yes, Maria said, making the promise before she had fully decided how to keep it. I will help you find her. But as the day continued, one question burned in her mind. If Leo was Antonio's son, born 10 years after her own child, who was the woman Antonio had started a family with, and how would she tell Leo what she suspected without proof? For 3 days, Leo worked alongside Maria in the bakery. He slept on her pull-out couch, ate regular meals, and slowly began to relax. The wary look in his eyes faded, replaced by curiosity and occasional flashes of a child's natural joy. Maria taught him to make cinnamon rolls, sourdough bread, and his favorite, chocolate chip cookies that they ate warm from the oven, leaving smears of chocolate on their aprons. You have flour on your nose, Maria told him on the third afternoon, reaching automatically to brush it away. Leo stiffened at the sudden movement, then forced himself to relax. Sorry, he muttered. No, I'm sorry, Maria said, withdrawing her hand. I should have asked first. Leo shrugged, turning back to the dough he was kneading. It's okay. I'm just not used to, people touching you? He nodded, not looking up. Mrs. Ransom only touched us to grab our arms, or worse. Maria's heart ached. Not all adults are like that, Leo. I know. My mom, my real mom, she used to hug me all the time. He punched the dough harder than necessary. I miss that. Maria watched him work, noting the tension in his small shoulders. Your adoptive mother sounds like she loved you very much. She did. Leo's voice was soft. Dad, too. They were good to me, even though I wasn't really theirs. You were theirs, Maria corrected gently. In all the ways that matter. Leo looked up at her, his expression suddenly vulnerable. Do you think my birth mother wanted me, or was I just a mistake? The question pierced Maria's heart. How many times had she wondered if her own child had asked the same thing, if he had felt unwanted, unloved? I can't speak for your birth mother, she said carefully. But I was young once too. Sometimes young people have to make impossible choices. It doesn't mean they don't love their children. Leo nodded, seeming to accept this. Have you found anything? About her, I mean? Maria hesitated. She had spent the last 3 nights searching through old photographs, letters, anything that might give her a clue about Antonio's life after he left. But there was nothing. Not yet, she admitted. But I have some ideas. People I might contact who knew your father. Leo's face lit up. Really? Who? Old friends, Maria said vaguely. It might take time, Leo. Oh, that's okay, he said, turning back to his dough. I can wait. The bell above the shop door jingled, and Maria went to serve the customer, Mrs. Alvarez, picking up her weekly order of sweet rolls. Maria chatted with her automatically, wrapping the pastries, making change. It wasn't until Mrs. Alvarez was leaving that she said the words that changed everything. Such a handsome young helper you have, she commented, nodding toward Leo, visible through the kitchen doorway. Your grandson? Before Maria could respond, a sharp voice cut through the bakery. He most certainly is not her grandson. That boy is a runaway foster child, and he needs to come with me immediately. A woman in a severe gray suit stood in the doorway, a police officer beside her, her gaze fixed on Leo, who had frozen in the kitchen doorway, his face draining of color. Leo Castillo, the woman said, her voice professionally neutral. The Ransoms reported you missing 3 weeks ago. Everyone's been very worried. Leo's eyes darted to Maria, then to the back door, calculating his escape. Don't run, the social worker said, seeing his expression. It will only make things worse. Maria stepped forward. There must be some misunderstanding. Leo has been helping. Me in the bakery. The social worker gave her a cold look. And you are? Maria Reyes. I own this bakery. And what is your relationship to the minor? Maria hesitated. I'm a friend. He's been staying with me temporarily, without notifying Child Protective Services, without legal guardianship. The woman's eyebrows rose. That's a serious offense, Ms. Reyes. The police officer stepped forward. Ma'am, harboring a runaway minor is against the law. I'm going to need to see some identification. You can't take him back there, Maria said, her voice rising. The Ransoms, they're abusive. They lock him in closets. Tell them, Leo. But Leo had retreated further into the kitchen, his eyes wide with betrayal. You called them? He whispered. You told them where I was? No, Maria exclaimed. Leo, I would never... Leo, collect your things, the social worker interrupted. We need to go now. The Ransoms are waiting. Something in Leo seemed to break. With a sudden burst of speed, he bolted for the back door, flinging it open and disappearing into the alley. Leo, Maria called, starting after him, but the officer blocked her path. Ma'am, I need you to stay here while my partner pursues the child. The second officer, who had been waiting outside, was already sprinting down the alley. After Leo. Please, Maria begged. He's scared. He's been abused in that home. You can't send him back. If you have evidence of abuse, you can file a formal report, the social worker said, unmoved. Right now, our priority is returning a minor to his legal guardians. Through the open back door, Maria heard a shout, then a child's cry of protest. Minutes later, the second officer returned, a struggling Leo firmly in his grip. Let me go, Leo shouted, kicking and twisting. I'm not going back. I'm not. Leo, Maria called, her heart breaking. Leo, I promise I didn't call them. I wouldn't do that to you. Leo's struggle stilled as he looked at her, his eyes full of accusation and hurt. You promised to help me, he said, his voice cracking. You lied. I'll fix this, Maria promised desperately. I'll come for you. Just be brave a little longer. But Leo had already shut down, his face going blank, as the social worker led him toward a waiting car. The last glimpse Maria had of him was his small form in the back seat, head turned, resolutely away from the bakery as the car pulled from the curb. The officer handed Maria a citation for harboring a runaway minor. "Court date's on the bottom," he said, not unkindly. "You might want to get a lawyer." After they left, Maria stood in the empty bakery, the smell of half-baked bread filling the air, and felt her world collapse around her. Leo was gone, and he believed she had betrayed him. "You should eat something," Sophia said, watching Maria push scrambled eggs around her plate. It had been 2 days since Leo was taken, 2 days of Maria moving through her routines like a ghost, baking bread she couldn't taste, serving customers, with a smile that never reached her eyes. "I'm not hungry," Maria mumbled. "Starving yourself won't help the boy," Sophia said firmly, "and it won't help you figure out what to do next." Maria looked up. "What can I do? I have no legal claim to him. The social worker made that very clear." "You could report the abuse," Sophia suggested. "If what Leo told you is true—" "Of course. It's true," Maria snapped. "You didn't see his face when they said they were taking him back to the ransoms. He was terrified, Sophia." "Then report it," Sophia repeated. "Make an official complaint." Maria sighed, pushing her plate away. "With what evidence? It's my word against theirs, and I'm already in trouble for harboring him." Sophia reached across the table to grasp Maria's hand. "Then what will you do? Give up?" The question hung in the air between them. Maria thought of Leo's face, of Antonio's eyes looking back at her, full of betrayal. "No," she said finally. "I can't give up on him." "Good," Sophia nodded approvingly. "So what's the plan?" Maria shook her head. "I don't know yet, but I need to start by cleaning up his things. He left his backpack here." Leo's few possessions were still scattered around her apartment: a toothbrush by the bathroom sink, a borrowed t-shirt draped over a chair, the small backpack leaning against the couch. Maria had left everything untouched, as if disturbing them might erase the proof that Leo had been there at all. She picked up the backpack now, feeling its lightness. What kind of life did a child have when all his belongings fit in such a small space? "I should wash these," she said, pulling out a wrinkled t-shirt and pair of jeans. In case he comes back." Sophia didn't contradict her, though they both knew the chances were slim. As Maria emptied the backpack, something fell from an inside pocket. A crumpled envelope, different from the one containing the adoption papers. This one was addressed simply, "To my birth mother." Maria's hands trembled as she opened it, unfolding a sheet of lined paper covered in a child's careful handwriting. "What is it?" Sophia asked, seeing Maria's expression. "A letter," Maria whispered, "from Leo to his birth mother." She began to read aloud. "Dear birth mother, my name is Leo Castillo. I'm your son. I was born on June 12, 2014. My parents told me I was adopted when I was a baby. They said you loved me but couldn't keep me. I believed them. They died in a car accident last year. After that, I found papers about my adoption. I also found papers about my brother who died. He was your son too. His father's name was Antonio Merlo. My father's name wasn't on my papers, but I think it might be the same person. The papers said you worked at a bakery in this neighborhood. That's why I came here. I've been to all the bakeries, but nobody remembers you. I'm living with a foster family now. They're not nice. I don't want to stay with them. I thought if I could find you, maybe you would want me back. Even if you don't, I just want to know who you are and why you gave me away. I'm not mad at you. I just want to meet you. Please, if someone gives you this letter, write back to me. Your son, Leo." Maria's voice broke on the last words. She clutched the letter to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Sophia," she whispered. "He's been searching for his mother all this time." Sophia's lined face was somber. "And did you find anything? Any clue who she might be?" Maria shook her head. "Nothing. Just Antonio's name on the papers, and the mention of a bakery in this neighborhood." She frowned suddenly. "Wait, that's odd." "What is?" "Leo said his birth date is June 12, 2014, but the adoption papers he showed me listed April 17, 2005, for his brother." Sophia's eyes widened. "Different mothers, perhaps? If this Antonio had children with two different women, maybe, Maria conceded. But then why would both children be placed with the same adoptive family? And through the same agency? She shook her head. There's something we're missing. Maria returned to the backpack, searching more thoroughly. In a small inside pocket, she found what she was looking for, the original envelope containing the adoption records. This time she examined each page carefully. Sophia, she said slowly, look at this. The older woman leaned forward, squinting at the papers Maria held. 2 birth certificates, Maria explained. One for a baby boy born April 17, 2005. Father, Antonio Merlo. Mother's name redacted. And one for Leo, born June 12, 2014. Father's name redacted. Mother's name also redacted. She looked up. But the adoption papers, they're nearly identical. Same agency, same caseworker, same adoptive parents, 9 years apart. Is that unusual? Sophia asked. I don't know, Maria admitted. But what are the chances that the same family would adopt 2 unrelated children 9 years apart from the same agency? She rubbed her temples. And if they are half-siblings, same father, different mothers, why wouldn't Leo's papers list Antonio as the father too? Sophia's expression grew troubled. What are you thinking, Maria? Maria stared at the papers, an impossible suspicion forming in her mind. I need to find Antonio, she said finally, or someone who knows what happened to him after he left. Maybe. Then we'll understand. And Leo? Sophia asked gently. What about him? Maria carefully folded the letter, placing it back in its envelope. First I report the ransoms for abuse. Then I find a lawyer. Her jaw set in determination. I'm not letting him stay in that house, Sophia. Not for one more day than necessary. It won't be easy, Sophia warned. The system doesn't just hand children over to anyone who asks. I know, Maria said quietly, but I have to try, for Leo, and, she touched the letter again, and for his mother, whoever she is. But as she gathered the papers, a small photo fell from between them, a family portrait of Leo with his adoptive parents, all 3 smiling at the camera. Leo couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 in the picture, his face rounder, happier. And on his adoptive mother's finger glinted a distinctive ring, a gold band with an unusual emerald setting that Maria recognized immediately. It was her mother's ring, the one she had sold 20 years ago to a pawn shop, desperate for money. After giving up her baby, It's impossible, Maria whispered, staring at the ring in the photograph. It can't be the same one. But it was. The distinctive setting had been her grandmother's design, an emerald surrounded by small diamonds in a pattern that resembled flower petals. One of a kind, the jeweler had told them. Maria had cried when she sold it, but the money had paid for 3 months' rent in the tiny apartment where she'd lived after giving up her baby. What is it? Sophia asked, peering at the photo. Maria pointed with a trembling finger. That ring. It was my mother's. I sold it 20 years ago when... She couldn't finish the sentence. Sophia's eyes widened. You think Leo's adoptive mother bought your ring? That's quite a coincidence. Too much of a coincidence, Maria said, her mind racing. Sophia, what if the baby I gave up and Leo's brother who died are the same child? The possibility hung in the air between them, too enormous to fully comprehend. But that would mean, Sophia began, that Leo is my son's brother, Maria finished. Antonio's second child. She shook her head, bewildered. But with whom? And why wouldn't his papers list Antonio as the father? Sophia's lined face was troubled. There's only one way to find out. You need to find someone who knew what happened to Antonio after he left. Maria nodded slowly. Miguel, Antonio's cousin, he still lives across town. I saw him at the market last year. She stood abruptly. I need to talk to him. Now? Maria? It's already evening. I can't wait, Sophia. Not another day. Miguel Merlo lived in a small apartment above his auto repair shop on the other side of the city. Maria hadn't spoken to him in 20 years, not since Antonio's family had packed up and disappeared from her life. She'd avoided the Merlos too, ashamed of her pregnancy, too hurt by Antonio's abandonment. Now, standing before Miguel's door, she wondered if that had been a mistake. The man who answered her knock was heavier than she remembered, with gray at his temples, but his eyes were The same, dark and perceptive, so like Antonio's, so like Leo's. Maria Reyes, he said, surprise evident in his voice. It's been a long time, too long, she agreed. May I come in? I need to ask you about Antonio. A shadow crossed Miguel's face. Antonio? Why now, after all these years? Please, Maria said. It's important. Miguel hesitated, then stepped back, allowing her inside. The apartment was simply furnished but neat, a bachelor's space, with car magazines on the coffee table and a single plate in the dish rack. Coffee, he offered, gesturing toward the kitchen. Maria shook her head. No, thank you. I won't stay. Long, they sat across from each other, an awkward silence stretching between them. Finally, Miguel sighed. What do you want to know about Antonio? Maria took a deep breath. What happened to him after his family left? Miguel's expression softened. He tried to come back to you, you know. About a month after they moved, his father found out and, well, it wasn't pretty. By then, though, you had disappeared. No one knew where you'd gone. Maria closed her eyes briefly. She had moved away after giving up the baby, unable to bear staying in the neighborhood with its memories. I had to leave, she said softly. I was pregnant when Antonio left. Did he know? Miguel's startled expression answered before his words did. Pregnant? No, he never mentioned. Are you saying Antonio had a child? A son, Maria confirmed. I gave him up for adoption. I was 18, alone. I couldn't. She shook her head. That's not why I'm here. I need to know what happened to Antonio after that. Did he marry? Have other children? Miguel's face grew somber. Antonio never married. He hesitated. This isn't easy to say. Maria, especially after all this time. Please, Maria urged. I need to know. Miguel sighed heavily. Antonio was gay, Maria. He struggled with it for years, trying to be what his father wanted, dating girls including you, but after they moved. Back to Spain, he finally came out to the family. His father disowned him. Maria sat back, stunned. Gay? But we were together for nearly a year. He cared for you, Miguel said gently. That wasn't fake. But he was confused, trying to be someone he wasn't. He paused. When he finally accepted himself, he moved to Madrid, away from his father's influence. Became an artist, quite successful, actually. And did he? Was there someone special? Maria asked, still processing this revelation. Miguel nodded. His partner's name was David. They were together for 15 years. Children? Maria pressed. Did they have children? No, Miguel said definitively. No children. They talked about adoption once, but it never happened. He studied her face. Why are you asking about this now, Maria? After all this time? Maria pulled out the photo of Leo and his adoptive parents, pointing to the ring. This boy, Leo, came to my bakery. He's looking for his birth mother. His adoption papers list Antonio Merlo as his father, but he was born in 2014. She looked up at Miguel. How is that possible if Antonio was gay and in a committed relationship? Miguel took the photo, examining it closely. His face paled. Where did you get this? From Leo. His adoptive parents died in an accident last year. He ran away from his foster home and ended up at my bakery looking for his birth mother. Maria leaned forward. Miguel, what aren't you telling me? Miguel set the photo down carefully. Antonio died 5 years ago, he said quietly. Cancer. He was only 35. I'm sorry, Maria whispered, genuine grief washing over her for the boy she had once loved. Before he died, Miguel continued, he made a confession to me, something he'd never told anyone, not even David. He looked directly at Maria. He had donated sperm during his college years, for money initially, but later because he liked. The idea that some part of him might live on, might help couples who couldn't have children naturally. Maria's hand flew to her mouth. Sperm donation? Miguel nodded. Anonymous. He never knew if any children resulted from it, but he hoped they did. So Leo? Maria began. Could very well be Antonio's biological son, Miguel finished, through donation, not relationship. Maria sat back, pieces falling into place. The timing, the sealed records, the missing father's name on Leo's birth certificate. Thank you, she said finally, standing to leave. You've helped more than you know. As she reached the door, Miguel called after her. Maria, wait. You said your son, yours and Antonio's, was given up for adoption. Do you know what happened to him? Maria turned, tears pricking her eyes. He died, she said softly. As a baby, heart complications. Miguel nodded sadly. I'm sorry. Antonio would have been sorry too. He hesitated. And this boy, Leo, what will you do about him? Maria straightened her shoulders, a new determination in her eyes. Whatever I have to. He's Antonio's son, and he needs help. As she stepped out into the night, Maria's mind whirled with new understanding. Leo wasn't her grandson, as she'd first suspected. He wasn't her son's brother, in the traditional sense. But he was connected to her, through Antonio, through a quirk of fate that had brought him to her bakery. And somewhere out there was a woman who had chosen Antonio's donation profile, given birth to Leo, and then, for reasons unknown, given him up for adoption to the same family that had adopted Maria's own son. Finding her was the key to everything. The social services office was as sterile and unwelcoming as Maria had feared. Beige walls, uncomfortable plastic chairs, and the distinct sense that emotions were unwelcome here. She clutched her folder of documents, Leo's letter, copies of the adoption papers, the photograph with her mother's ring, and a formal complaint about the ransom's treatment of Leo. Ms. Reyes, a tired-looking woman, appeared in the doorway. I'm Nancy Torres. I understand you have concerns about one of our foster children? Maria stood, smoothing her skirt nervously. Yes, Leo Castillo. He was staying with me briefly before he was returned to his foster home. Nancy's expression didn't change as she led Maria to a small office. Ah, yes, the runaway case. Please, have a seat, Maria sat, laying out her documents carefully. I'm here to report abuse by Leo's foster parents, the Ransoms. He told me they lock him in closets as punishment, among other things. Nancy sighed, the sound of someone who had heard similar claims countless times. Did you witness this abuse? No, but do you have photographic evidence? Medical records? Other witnesses? Maria's frustration mounted. No, I have Leo's word. He was terrified of returning to them. Ms. Reyes, Nancy said, her voice professional but cool, children in the system often make accusations when they don't want to follow rules. We investigate all credible claims, but without evidence. He's 10 years old, Maria interrupted. Why would he make this up? Why would he run away and sleep on the streets if his home was safe? Nancy regarded her for a long moment. What exactly is your interest in this child, Ms. Reyes? You're not a relative, correct? Maria hesitated. It's complicated. I believe I may have a connection to Leo's biological family. She slid forward the photograph. This ring belonged to my mother. Somehow it ended up with Leo's adoptive mother. I gave up a son for adoption 20 years ago who died as an infant. He was adopted by the Castillos, the same family who later adopted Leo. Nancy's eyebrows rose slightly, the first genuine reaction Maria had seen from her. That's unusual, but it doesn't establish any legal relationship between you and Leo. I know that, Maria admitted, but I care about what happens to him. And I'm worried. Please, can you at least check on him? Make sure he's safe? Nancy made a note in her file. We can conduct a welfare check. But I should warn you, Ms. Reyes, that even if we find evidence of inappropriate discipline, removing a child from a placement is a last resort. The foster system is overwhelmed. There are very few homes available. What if, Maria took a deep breath, what if I applied to become a foster parent? For Leo specifically? Nancy's expression softened slightly. That process takes months, Ms. Reyes. Background checks, home studies, training courses, and even then, placement with a non-relative would only happen if no suitable relatives could be found. Maria leaned forward. Leo has no relatives. His adoptive parents are dead. His birth parent, well, his biological father is deceased, and his birth mother's identity is sealed in the adoption records. Which brings me to your other request, Nancy said, glancing at the second form Maria had submitted. You're seeking information about Leo's birth mother? Yes, I think finding her might help Leo understand his past, and perhaps she could be a resource for him now. Nancy shook her head. I'm afraid that's not possible. Those records are sealed. Only Leo himself could request access, and not until he's 18. Maria's heart sank. There must be some exception, some way to... There isn't, Nancy interrupted firmly. Those are the laws protecting birth parents' privacy. She hesitated, then added more gently, even if we could unseal those records, there's no guarantee contacting his birth mother would help Leo. Many women who choose adoption don't want to be found. Maria nodded, fighting back tears of frustration. Can you at least tell me which agency handled his adoption? Maybe they could pass a message to her, let her decide if she wants contact. That I can do, Nancy said, after a moment's consideration. She flipped through her file. Horizon's adoption agency handled both placements. They're still operating offices downtown. She wrote the address on a slip of paper and slid it across the desk. But I can't promise they'll help either. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maria tucked the address into her purse. Thank you, and please check on Leo soon. Today, if possible. Nancy nodded non-committally. We'll follow protocol, Ms. Reyes. Outside, Sophia waited on a bench, bundled against the autumn chill. Well, she asked as Maria emerged, they'll do a welfare check, but I don't think they believe me about the abuse. Maria's voice was bitter, and the adoption records are sealed. But I have the agency's address. Maybe they can help. Sophia squeezed her hand. One step at a time. Horizon's adoption agency occupied the third floor of an unremarkable office building downtown. The waiting room was decorated with smiling photos of families, carefully curated success stories designed to reassure potential clients. Do you have an appointment? The receptionist asked. No, Maria admitted. But I'm hoping someone could speak with me about a past adoption. It's urgent. The young woman's smile never wavered. I'm afraid our caseworkers only see clients by appointment, and information about specific adoptions is confidential. Please, Maria persisted. I'm not asking for confidential information. I just need to get a message to someone. I can have a caseworker call you to discuss what might be possible, the receptionist offered. If you'll leave your information. Is there a problem, Jen? An older woman appeared from a back office, her curious gaze taking in Maria and Sophia. This lady is asking about a past adoption, Ms. Winters. Without an appointment. The older woman, Ms. Winters, studied Maria thoughtfully. I see, perhaps I can help. I've been with Horizons for 30 years. I've handled many of our placements personally. She gestured toward her office. Why don't you come in for a few minutes? Maria followed her, hope rising. Ms. Winters closed the door and settled behind. Her desk, her expression kind but professional. Now, how can I help you? Maria took a deep breath and began her story. Leo appearing at her bakery, the discovery of his connection to Antonio, the abuse in his foster home, and her desperate need. To find someone who could help him, Ms. Winters listened without interruption, her face revealing nothing. When Maria finished, she sat back in her chair. That's quite a story, Ms. Reyes. And you believe Leo's birth mother might be willing to help him? I don't know, Maria admitted. But she should at least have the choice, shouldn't she? To know. What's happening to her son? Ms. Winters sighed. I understand your concern for the boy, but I cannot breach confidentiality even in these circumstances. She held up a hand as Maria began to protest. However, I can tell you that in some cases birth mothers leave letters with us to be given to their children if they ever come. Looking. I can check if Leo's file contains such a letter. It wasn't much, but it was more than Maria had hoped for. Thank you. That would mean a lot. Wait here, Ms. Winters said, rising. I'll check our archives. As the minutes ticked by, Maria tried not to get her hopes up. What were the chances that Leo's birth mother had left a letter? And even if she had, would it contain any useful information? When Ms. Winters returned, her expression was somber. I'm sorry, Ms. Reyes. There's no letter in Leo's file. She hesitated. However, there is something else. A note in the file indicates that the birth mother specified she would be open to contact if the child ever wished it. That's unusual in closed adoptions, Maria leaned forward. So, she might want to meet Leo? It's possible, Ms. Winters conceded, but I still can't give you her information. The best I can do is contact her myself, explain the situation, and see if she's willing to meet with you. Yes, Maria said eagerly. Please do that. Ms. Winters nodded. I'll try to reach her today. Leave your contact information with Jen. At the front desk, she stood, signaling the end of their meeting. But Ms. Reyes, please don't raise the boy's hopes. Many things can change in 10 years. She may have a new family now, one that doesn't know about Leo. She may not be in a position to help. Maria nodded, understanding. I know, but we have to. Try. Back on the street, Sophia took Maria's arm. Now what? Now we wait, Maria said, looking up at the darkening sky. And pray that Leo is safe tonight. 2 days passed with no word from Ms. Winters. Maria called the agency repeatedly, only to be told that they were still in the process of reaching out. Her formal complaint about the ransom seemed to have disappeared into the bureaucratic void of social services, with Nancy Torres unavailable each time she called. You need to be patient, Sophia advised, watching Maria pace the length of the bakery after closing time. These things move slowly. Leo doesn't have time, Maria snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. I'm sorry, I keep thinking about him in that house, with those people. Sophia nodded understandingly. I know, but wearing yourself out won't help him. The sharp ring of the bakery phone cut through their conversation. Maria lunged for it. Hello? Yes, this is Maria Reyes. Her face paled as she listened to the voice on the other end. When? Is he hurt? Yes, I understand. Thank you for letting me know. She hung up, her hands trembling. What is it? Sophia asked, alarmed. Leo ran away again, Maria said. Already? Reaching for her coat. That was Nancy Torres. The police are looking for him, but she broke off, her voice catching. There's a storm coming tonight. Outside, the sky was already darkening, heavy clouds pregnant with rain. The temperature had dropped sharply since morning, and the wind carried the bite of approaching winter. Where would he go? Sophia asked. Maria shook her head. I don't know. Maybe here? It's the only place he's felt safe. She turned to Sophia. Can you stay and watch the bakery, in case he comes to the back door while I'm out looking? Sophia nodded. Of course. But Maria, be careful. This weather. But Maria was already out the door, pulling her coat tight against the first drops of rain. For hours she searched. The alleyways behind the bakery, the park 3 blocks over, the bus station, where she'd once found herself at 18, desperate and alone. The rain intensified, soaking through her coat, plastering her hair to her face. Still, she continued, calling Leo's name into the gathering darkness. It was nearly midnight when she found him huddled under a picnic shelter in the small neighborhood park. He was soaked to the skin, his thin jacket providing little protection against the elements. When he saw her, he scrambled to his feet, ready to run again. Wait, Maria called, stopping at the edge of the shelter, rain streaming down her face. Leo, please, I've been looking everywhere for you. Leo's face was wary, his body tensed for flight. How did you find me? I've been searching all night. Maria took a cautious step closer. The social worker called. Said you ran away again. Leo's expression hardened. You called her? Again? No, Maria insisted. Leo, I never called them the first time. Someone else must have reported seeing you at the bakery. And this time, they called me because they're worried about you. She gestured to the storm raging around them. As am I. Leo remained suspicious, but he didn't run. Why do you care? You're nobody to me. The words stung, but Maria understood the fear behind them. I care because I see a child who needs help. And because, she hesitated, because I knew your father. That caught his attention. Antonio Merlo? Maria nodded, rain dripping from her hair. We were together once, long ago, before you were born. You knew him? Leo's voice was suddenly eager. What was he like? Do I look like him? Why did he give me up? The questions tumbled out, and Maria's heart ached at the naked longing in his voice. She stepped fully into the shelter, closing the distance between them. He was kind, she said softly. Artistic, funny, and yes, you look very much like him, especially your eyes. She took a deep breath. But Leo, there's something you need to understand. Antonio wasn't exactly your father, not in the traditional sense. Leo's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? His name is on my brother's birth certificate. Your brother, yes. Maria hesitated, searching for the right words. Leo, Antonio was a sperm donor for both you and your brother. Leo stared at her, uncomprehending. A what? A sperm donor, Maria repeated gently. He provided help for women who wanted to have babies but didn't have a partner. It's likely your birth mother chose him from profiles at a clinic. Leo's face crumpled. So, he never even knew me? Never even knew I existed? No, Maria admitted, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't have cared for you if he had known. He was a good man, Leo. Was? Leo caught the past tense immediately. He died 5 years ago, Maria said softly. I'm sorry. Leo turned away, his thin shoulders shaking. Whether from cold or emotion, Maria couldn't tell. So I've been looking. For nothing, he said, his voice muffled. A mother who didn't want me and a father who never knew me. Your mother might have wanted you very much, Maria countered. We don't know why she gave you up. There could have been circumstances. Leo whirled around, tears mingling with rainwater on his face. Like what? What reason is good enough to give away your kid? The question hit Maria like a physical blow. Sometimes young women aren't ready, or they can't provide what a child needs. Sometimes giving a child up is the most loving choice they can make. That's just what adults say to make themselves feel better, Leo spat. Maria closed her eyes briefly, gathering her courage. I know because I did it, she said quietly. I gave up my baby 20 years ago. Leo stared at her, anger momentarily forgotten. You? Maria nodded. I was 18, alone. The father, Antonio, had moved away. My parents wouldn't help. She swallowed hard. I gave my son to a family who could give him everything I couldn't, the Castillos. Leo's eyes widened in shock. The Castillos, my adoptive parents? Yes, Maria whispered. They adopted my son, your brother, the one who died. She took a step closer. Leo, I think somehow when they decided to adopt again, they chose another child connected to Antonio. Maybe they thought it would be like having a piece of their first son back. Leo shook his head, backing away. No, that's crazy. You're making this up. I'm not, Maria insisted. It's why I've been trying to help you. Why I care so much. You're connected to my son, to Antonio. So what? Leo demanded, anger flaring again. That doesn't make you my grandmother or whatever you're thinking. You're nothing to me. Just some lady who knew my donor dad once, a long time ago. Each word was a dagger, but Maria stood her ground. You're right. I have no legal claim to you, but I care about what happens to you, Leo, and I've been trying to find your birth mother. The adoption agency is contacting her. Why? Leo asked, his voice cracking. So she can reject me all over again? No, Maria said firmly. So you can understand. So you can have answers. And because right now, you need someone on your side. She held out her hand. Please come back with me, out of this storm. We'll figure things out together. Leo looked at her outstretched hand, then at the raging storm beyond the shelter. For a moment, Maria thought he would accept. Then he darted past her into the rain, his voice carrying back through the downpour. Leave me alone. I don't need you or her or anyone. Leo, Maria called, chasing after him. But he was younger, faster, and knew the park better than she did. Within moments, he had disappeared into the darkness, leaving Maria alone in the rain, calling a name that echoed unanswered through the empty night. Maria was still shivering when she pushed through the bakery's front door, her clothes soaked and her heart heavier than the rain clouds overhead. Sophia jumped up from behind the counter, alarm written across her face. Did you find him? Maria nodded, water dripping onto the floor, and lost him again. I told him about Antonio, about my son. He didn't take it well. Sophia guided her toward the stairs. You need to get warm first, then tell me everything. Upstairs, wrapped in a dry robe with a cup of tea warming her hands, Maria recounted her conversation with Leo. I shouldn't have told him like that, she concluded miserably, in the middle of a storm when he was already scared and angry. I thought it might make him trust me. You told him the truth, Sophia said firmly. Children deserve the truth, even when it's complicated, but now he's out there somewhere, alone, thinking nobody wants him. Maria set down her cup with shaking hands. I need to find him again. I need to make this right. The phone rang, startling them both. Maria lunged for it, hope flaring. Hello? Ms. Reyes? This is Ms. Winters from Horizons Adoption Agency. Maria sank back into her chair. Yes, I've been waiting for your call. Did you reach Leo's birth mother? There was a pause. Yes and no. The contact information we had is outdated. However, I did manage to track her down through other means. And, Maria prompted, when Ms. Winters didn't continue, will she help? Will she meet with Leo? Another pause. She's agreed to meet with you first, tomorrow morning at our office, if that works for you. Yes, of course, Maria said quickly. But Leo, he's run away again. The social worker called me earlier. He's somewhere out in this storm. I see, Ms. Winters said, her voice carefully professional. That complicates things. I should inform you that I've also contacted Ms. Torres about this situation. She'll be joining us for the meeting. Maria's stomach knotted with anxiety. Am I in trouble for trying to find Leo's birth mother? No, Ms. Winters assured her, but this is a delicate situation involving a minor in state custody. We need to proceed carefully and legally. She paused again. Ms. Reyes, I should prepare you. The birth mother is not what you might expect. Please come with an open mind. The cryptic warning left Maria with more questions than answers, but before she could press for details, Ms. Winters ended the call with a reminder of the meeting time. What did she say? Sophia asked as Maria hung up. Leo's birth mother agreed to meet me tomorrow. Maria shook her head, bewildered. But Ms. Winters said she's not what I might expect. What does that even mean? Sophia patted her hand. You'll find out tomorrow. For now, you need to sleep. You can't help Leo if you make yourself ill. But sleep proved elusive. Maria lay awake, listening to the storm rage outside, wondering if Leo had found shelter, wondering what secrets tomorrow's meeting might reveal. Morning came with clearing skies and a hollow-eyed Maria arriving at Horizons Adoption Agency 30 minutes early. The receptionist, different from her previous visit, smiled sympathetically. Ms. Reyes, they're expecting you. Go right into Conference Room B. With each step down the hallway, Maria's anxiety mounted. What would Leo's birth mother be like? Would she be willing to help? Would she want to meet Leo, to be part of his life? She pushed open the door to find 3 women already seated around a small table. Nancy Torres from Social Services nodded. A curt greeting. Ms. Winters offered a tight smile. But it was the third woman who captured Maria's attention. Middle-aged, with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a no-nonsense pantsuit and an expression of professional detachment. Ms. Reyes, Ms. Winters began, thank you for coming. This is Nancy Torres, whom you've already met, and this is Dr. Elaine Harper. The older woman extended her hand. Ms. Reyes, I understand you've been looking for me. Maria shook her hand. Automatically, confusion evident on her face. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Are you... I'm not Leo's birth mother, if that's what you're asking, Dr. Harper clarified. I'm the fertility specialist who helped create him. Maria sank into a chair. I don't understand. Dr. Harper glanced at Ms. Winters, who nodded encouragingly. Ms. Reyes, what do you know about gestational surrogacy? Surrogacy? Maria repeated. Very little. It's when one woman carries a baby for another, right? Essentially, yes, Dr. Harper confirmed. In Leo's case, it was part of a more complex arrangement. She opened a folder on the table. 20. Years ago, a young woman came to my clinic. She had just given up a baby for adoption and was experiencing tremendous regret. She wanted to leave something for that child in case he ever came looking for his biological parents. Maria's heart began to race. What did she leave? Eggs, Dr. Harper said simply. She underwent fertility treatments and egg retrieval. We froze her eggs with the understanding that they would be kept available if her son ever needed them. For medical reasons, for example. Maria stared at her. You're talking about me, she whispered. I'm the young woman. Dr. Harper nodded. Yes, Ms. Reyes, though you used a different name then. Your maiden name, I believe. Maria's mind whirled. She remembered the clinic, the counseling sessions, the procedures. It had been her way of maintaining some connection to the child she'd Given up, a backup, her doctor had called it, in case her son ever needed a genetic match for medical treatment. But what does this have to do with Leo, she asked. Dr. Harper and Ms. Winters exchanged glances. 9 years after you donated your eggs, Dr. Harper continued, the Castillos contacted our clinic. Their adopted son, your biological child, had died from congenital heart failure. They were devastated. They wanted another child, but Mrs. Castillo couldn't conceive naturally. Maria's hand flew to her mouth as understanding dawned. They used my eggs, Dr. Harper nodded, with your prior consent. The agreement you signed allowed for their use in specific circumstances, including this one. They also specifically requested Antonio Mirlo as the sperm donor, as he was the biological father of their first adopted child. So Leo is... Maria couldn't finish the sentence, the implications too enormous to articulate. Biologically, Dr. Harper said gently, Leo is your son. The world seemed to tilt beneath Maria's feet. Leo was her son, not her grandson, not merely connected through Antonio, but her own flesh and blood, her eggs, Antonio's sperm. A child created years after they had parted, born to another woman, raised by the same family that had adopted their first son. Maria struggled to find words. I don't understand how this could happen without my knowledge. Dr. Harper's expression was sympathetic but firm. You signed consent forms, Ms. Reyes. They were very clear about potential uses of your donated genetic material. I was 18, Maria whispered, devastated about giving up my baby. I barely remember those forms. Nevertheless, they were. Legally binding, Ms. Winters interjected. The Castillos followed all proper procedures. Leo's birth mother was a gestational surrogate. She carried the embryo but had no genetic connection to him. And she has no parental rights? Maria asked. None, Ms. Winters confirmed. The Castillos were Leo's legal parents from birth. After their deaths, with no named guardian in their will, he became a ward of the state. Nancy Torres, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. Which brings us to the present situation. Leo is in foster care. He's run away twice now. And you, Ms. Reyes, are claiming abuse in his current placement. Not claiming, Maria corrected sharply. Reporting. Leo told me they lock him in closets. As punishment, Nancy nodded, making a note in her file. We're investigating those allegations. In the meantime, given these unusual circumstances, I need to ask, are you interested in applying for guardianship of Leo? The question hung in the air. Maria's immediate instinct was to say yes, to claim this child, who was biologically hers, to protect him from the ransoms, to give him the home and love she hadn't been able to provide for her first son, but doubt crept in. She was a single woman in her late 30s, running a struggling bakery, living in a tiny apartment. What could she offer Leo beyond good intentions? I need time to process this, she said finally. And Leo, he doesn't even know. He ran away, thinking I was just some woman who knew his donor father. Finding Leo is our immediate priority, Nancy agreed. Once he's safe, we can discuss next steps. I've alerted the police about his connection to you, Ms. Winters added. They'll bring him to the agency if they find him. And if I find him first? Maria asked. Call us immediately, Nancy instructed. Don't try to handle this alone, Ms. Reyes. However well-intentioned, it could complicate matters legally. The meeting concluded with promises to stay in touch. Maria walked out into the bright morning, her mind still reeling from the revelations. Leo was her son. All those times she had looked into his eyes and seen Antonio, she had been looking at her own child. Sophia was waiting at the bakery, anxiety etched across her face. What happened? Did you meet her? Maria sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. There is no her, Sophia, no birth mother, at least not in the traditional sense. She explained everything, the egg donation, the Castillo's decision, the surrogacy. Sophia listened in stunned silence. When Maria finished, she crossed herself. Dios mío, so Leo is... My son, Maria confirmed, the words still strange on her tongue. Mine and Antonio's. A miracle or a nightmare, I'm not sure which. A miracle, Sophia said firmly. God has returned your child to you, Maria. A child who doesn't want to be found, Maria reminded her, who ran away when I tried to explain even part of this to him. The bakery phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Maria answered, her heart racing at the caller ID. Horizon's adoption agency. Ms. Reyes? We've found Leo. The police brought him in about 10 minutes ago. He's asking for you. Relief flooded through Maria. Is he all right? Cold? Hungry, but otherwise fine. Can you come now? I'm on my way. At the agency, Maria found Leo huddled in a chair in Ms. Winter's office, a blanket around his shoulders and a half-eaten sandwich on the desk before him. He looked up as she entered, his expression guarded. You came, he said, his voice small. Of course I came, Maria replied, resisting the urge to rush forward and embrace him. I've been worried sick about you. Ms. Winters stood. I'll give you some privacy. Nancy is on her way, so you have about 15 minutes. When the door closed behind her, Maria took the seat across from Leo. Are you okay? Really? Leo shrugged. I guess. Better than the closet at the Ransoms. Maria winced. Leo, about last night, what I told you. Is it true? He interrupted. That you knew my father? That your son was my brother? Maria took a deep breath. Yes, that part is true. But there's more to the story, something I didn't know myself until today. Leo's eyes narrowed with suspicion. What? How could she explain this to a 10-year-old? The complexity of assisted reproduction, of genetic material frozen and used years later. She decided on the simplest version of the truth. Leo, I'm your biological mother. He stared at her. What? No, that's not possible. My birth mother was a surrogate. The Castillos told me that much. Yes, a surrogate carried you, Maria agreed. But the egg, the part that made you you, that came from me. Leo shook his head. You're making this up, to try to keep me here. I'm not, Maria said gently. We can take a DNA test if you want. Proof. But it's true. When I was young, after I gave up my first baby, your brother, I donated eggs. Years later, the Castillos used one of those eggs, together with sperm from Antonio, to create you. Leo's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something like hope, before settling back into wariness. So what? You didn't carry me. You didn't raise me. You didn't even know I existed until now. That's true, Maria acknowledged, and I can't change that, but I know you now. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your life. Why? Leo demanded. Because of some DNA? Because you feel guilty about giving away your first kid? The question stung, but Maria recognized the fear behind it, partly because of our connection. Yes, she admitted, but mostly because in the short time I've known you, I've come to care about you, Leo, for yourself. Not just because of who your parents were. Leo looked down, picking at a loose thread on the blanket. They want to send me back to the Ransoms, he said quietly. I won't let that happen, Maria promised. I'm going to apply to become your guardian. If you want that, she added hastily, it's your choice too. Leo was silent for a long moment. Could I live above the bakery? With you? Yes, Maria said, hope flaring in her chest. We'd have to make some changes, make the pullout. Couch your permanent bed for now, maybe look for a bigger place eventually. But yes. And I could help with the baking, Maria smiled. You're already a natural, Leo nodded slowly. I'd need proof, though, that you're really, my biological's mother. We can get a DNA test, Maria assured him. And I'll show you all the documents from the clinic, from the adoption agency. Whatever you need to feel secure. What if it's not true? Leo asked, his voice small. What if the test says we're not related? Maria reached across the desk, offering, yes, her hand. Then I'll still want to help you, if you'll let me. This isn't just about biology, Leo. Leo stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment. Then slowly he placed his smaller one in hers. Okay, he said quietly. Let's take the test. The DNA test results arrived in a sterile white envelope 2 weeks later. During those 14 days, Leo remained in temporary emergency foster care. not with the ransoms, thanks to Maria's persistence, and a preliminary investigation that had uncovered troubling evidence supporting Leo's claims of mistreatment. Maria had visited Leo daily at the group home, bringing fresh pastries and spending hours talking with him about everything and nothing: his love for baseball, her childhood in the neighborhood, his memories of the Castillos, her early days learning to bake. Carefully, they had constructed a fragile bridge between them, built on small confidences and shared moments. But the envelope in Maria's hands could either strengthen that bridge or destroy it completely. "Do you want to open it?" she asked Leo, sitting beside him on a bench in the group home's visiting area. Leo shook his head, staring at the envelope, as if it might bite. "You do it." Maria's fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Though she knew what the results would show, the clinic records had been clear. Seeing the scientific confirmation would make everything real in a way it hadn't been before. She unfolded the paper, scanning the medical jargon until she found the conclusion: probability of maternity, 99.99998%. "We match," she said simply, turning the paper so Leo could see. "I am your biological mother." Leo stared at the results, his expression unreadable. "So it's all true, everything you said?" Maria nodded. "Yes, all of it. And Antonio, he really was my biological father, even though he never knew about me?" "Yes." "Through the sperm donation he made years earlier." Leo was quiet for a long moment, processing. "So my brother, your first son, he was my full brother? Same mom, same dad?" "Yes," Maria said softly. "Genetically, you were full siblings." "What was his name?" Leo asked suddenly. "The Castillos never told me." Maria's heart caught. "I don't know," she admitted. "I never named him. That right belonged to his adoptive parents." "Oh." Leo looked down. "I wish I could have known him." "Me too," Maria whispered, grief for her firstborn washing over her anew. Leo fidgeted with the edge of the test results. "So what happens now?" "That depends partly on you," Maria said carefully. "I've applied for guardianship. Nancy, Ms. Torres, is expediting the process because of your situation, but there are still procedures we have to follow. Home study, background checks, parenting classes for me." "How long will that take?" "A few months, normally, but she thinks it might be faster in our case, given the biological connection and—" Maria hesitated. "And your current situation." Leo nodded, understanding the unspoken reference to his lack of other options. "Will I have to stay here until then?" "Not necessarily," Maria said, hope coloring her voice. "There's something called kinship placement. Since we're biologically related, they might allow you to stay with me while the guardianship process is ongoing." "Nancy said she's recommending it." Leo's eyes lit up briefly before caution reasserted itself. "Really? When?" "She's presenting the recommendation today. We could know as early as tomorrow." Leo nodded, trying to maintain his composure, though Maria could see the mixture of hope and fear warring in his expression. "Would I go to school in your neighborhood?" "Yes," Maria confirmed. "There's a good school just 3 blocks from the bakery." "And I could still help you bake?" Maria smiled. "Absolutely. You're my best apprentice." A ghost of a smile touched Leo's lips. "Better than Sophia. Much better. But don't tell her I said that." They shared a small laugh, the tension easing slightly. "There's something else," Maria said, reaching into her purse. "I found this yesterday, going through some old things." She handed Leo a small photograph, worn at the edges. "This is Antonio, your biological father." Leo took the photo reverently, studying the young man with his arm around a teenage Maria, both of them smiling at the camera. "He looks like me," he whispered. "Yes," Maria agreed. "You have his eyes, his smile too." "Was he nice?" Leo asked, still staring at the photograph. "Very," Maria assured him. "Kind, funny, creative." "Would he have liked me if he'd known about me?" The question broke Maria's heart. "He would have loved you, Leo, very much." Leo nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. He handed the photograph back. "You should keep it. It's yours." "I have others," Maria said. "This one is for you." Leo took the photo back carefully, tucking it into his pocket. "Thank you." They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Leo spoke again, his voice quiet but determined. "I want to come live with you, if they'll let me." Relief and joy flooded through Maria. "I want that too, more than anything, but I have conditions." Leo continued, a hint of his former wariness returning. Maria nodded, respecting his need for control in a life where he'd had so little. "Of course, what are they?" "First, no secrets," Leo said firmly. "You'll have to tell me everything, even if you think it'll upset me." "Agreed," Maria said immediately. "Complete honesty." "Second, no closets, ever, not even as a joke." Maria's heart ached at the request. "Never, you have my word." "Third, if I want to talk about the Castillos, about my adoptive parents, you have to be okay with that. They were my real parents too, even if they're gone now." "Of course," Maria said softly. "They raised you, loved you. They'll always be part of who you are, Leo." Leo nodded, seeming to gather courage for his final condition. "And fourth, I don't have to call you Mom unless I want to. Maybe someday, but not right away." Maria swallowed the lump in her throat. "You can call me Maria for as long as you want. Forever, if that feels right to you." Leo studied her face as if checking for signs of disappointment or resentment. Finding none, he nodded again. Decision made. "Okay then," he said, extending his hand formally. "Deal." Maria took his small hand in hers, fighting back tears of joy. "Deal." As they sealed their agreement with a handshake, the visiting room door opened and Nancy Torres entered, a file folder tucked under her arm and a rare smile on her face. "Good news," she announced. "The kinship placement has been approved. Leo can go home with you tomorrow, Ms. Reyes." Home. The word hung in the air between them, full of promise and possibility. For the first time since finding Leo huddled against her bakery door, Maria allowed herself to fully believe that this remarkable, impossible second chance might actually become reality. Leo's hand tightened around hers, and when she looked down at him, she saw her own cautious hope reflected in his eyes, Antonio's eyes. "Tomorrow," he said softly. "Tomorrow," Maria echoed, her heart full. "We'll go home." Maria straightened Leo's collar for the third time, her fingers smoothing invisible wrinkles from his newly purchased button-down shirt. 2 months had passed since he had come to live above the bakery. 2 months of adjustments, small victories, occasional setbacks, and gradual healing for both of them. "Stop fussing," Leo protested, though without real annoyance. "I look fine." "You look more than fine," Maria assured him. "You look handsome." Today was their court date, the formal hearing that would determine whether the temporary kinship placement would become a permanent guardianship. Maria had been preparing for weeks, gathering character references, financial documents, proof of the parenting classes she'd completed. Still, anxiety gnawed at her stomach. "What if the judge says no?" Leo asked quietly, voicing the fear that had haunted them both. Maria knelt to meet his eyes. "Then we appeal. We fight. We don't give up." She squeezed his shoulders gently. "But Nancy thinks it will go our way. The home study went well, my background check was clean, and most importantly, you're happy here." "The judge will see that," Leo nodded, his expression serious beyond his years. "I am happy here." The simple statement warmed Maria's heart. Their path hadn't been entirely smooth. Leo still had nightmares about the closet punishments, still struggled with abandonment fears that manifested in testing behaviors. But there had also been laughter in the bakery kitchen, pride in mastering new recipes, and the slow building of trust between them. Sophia joined them at the courthouse, her presence a steady comfort as they waited on the hard wooden benches outside. The family court. Nancy Torres arrived with a thick folder of documents and a rare, optimistic expression. "Everything looks good," she told Maria quietly. "The judge has reviewed your file and seems favorably inclined. Just answer honestly and remember, focus on Leo's best interests, not just your desire to be his guardian." Maria nodded, her throat too tight for words. Beside her, Leo sat unnaturally still, his small hands clasped in his lap. When their case was called, they entered the courtroom together. The judge, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes, reviewed their file silently before looking up. "This is an unusual case," she began. "Ms. Reyes, you are seeking guardianship of Leo Castillo on the basis of biological connection, despite having no prior relationship with the child until recently. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," Maria confirmed, "though I'd like to clarify that while I am Leo's biological mother, I recognize that I am not replacing his adoptive parents. They raised him for 9 years with love and care. I'm simply hoping to provide him with a stable home now that they're gone." The judge nodded approvingly. "Well stated. And Leo," she turned her attention to the boy, "you've been living with Ms. Reyes for 2 months now. How has that been for you?" Leo straightened in his chair. "Good, Your Honor. She doesn't yell or lock me up. She teaches me to bake. And she lets me talk about my parents, my adoptive parents, whenever I want." "I see." The judge made a note. "And do you want Ms. Reyes to be your guardian?" "Yes," Leo said firmly. "I want to stay with her." The judge turned back to her file. "Ms. Torres, as Leo's caseworker, what is the department's recommendation?" Nancy stood. "The department recommends approval of Ms. Reyes's guardianship petition, Your Honor. The biological connection is verified, the home study was positive, and most importantly, Leo has shown significant improvement in emotional well-being since being placed with Ms. Reyes. We believe this placement serves his best interests." "And the previous foster placement, the ransoms?" "An investigation substantiated Leo's claims of inappropriate discipline," Nancy reported. "Their foster care license has been suspended pending further review," the judge nodded, then surprised them all by addressing Sophia. "And you are?" Sophia stood, leaning on her cane. "Sophia Mendez, Your Honor, neighbor and friend to both Maria and Leo. And your impression of this arrangement?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "They belong together. Anyone who sees them knows it. Maria has been alone too long, and Leo needs someone who sees him, really sees him. They're healing each other." The simple testimony brought tears to Maria's eyes. The judge seemed moved as well, her formal demeanor softening slightly. "I also note several letters of support from community members," the judge continued, lifting a stack of papers. "The owner of the bookstore next to your bakery, the elementary school principal, several of your regular customers. They all speak highly of both of you." Maria blinked in surprise. She hadn't known so many people had written on their behalf. "Ms. Reyes," the judge said, "guardianship is a serious responsibility. Are you prepared for the challenges of raising a 10-year-old boy as a single mother while running your own business?" "I am," Maria said firmly. "I've arranged my baking schedule to accommodate Leo's school hours. He helps in the bakery after school, which he enjoys and which teaches him responsibility. And I have support: Sophia, neighbors, the community. We'll make it work." The judge considered this, then turned to Leo again. "Young man, is there anything else you'd like me to know before I make my decision?" Leo hesitated, then spoke with quiet certainty. "Just that she came looking for me in the rain. Twice. Nobody else ever did that." The simple statement hung in the air for a moment. The judge nodded, as if something had been confirmed for her. "Having reviewed all the evidence and testimony, I find that guardianship with Maria Reyes is in Leo Castillo's best interest," she announced. "I'm approving the petition with a standard 6-month review to ensure continued positive adjustment." Relief washed over Maria so intensely that for a moment she couldn't breathe. Beside her, Leo's rigid posture relaxed for the first time that day. "Thank you, Your Honor," Maria managed. The judge smiled, her formal demeanor giving way to genuine warmth. "Family comes in many forms, Ms. Reyes. What matters is love, commitment, and putting the child's needs first. It seems to me you're doing all three." She signed the paperwork with a flourish. "Congratulations to you both." Outside the courtroom, Sophia hugged them both, tears streaming down her lined face. "I told you, God works in mysterious ways," she whispered to Maria. "He brought your son back to you." "Not exactly," Maria corrected gently, watching Leo as he excitedly told Nancy about the cinnamon rolls he'd learned to make. "He brought me a new son to love, and a second chance I never dreamed possible." As if sensing her gaze, Leo looked up and smiled, a real smile without reservation or caution. In that moment, Maria saw not just Antonio's features, but something uniquely Leo's, a resilience and hope that was entirely his own. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" he asked, bouncing on his toes. "Absolutely," Maria laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in 20 years. "Ice cream, pizza, whatever you want. Today is worth celebrating." As they left the courthouse together, Maria realized that for the first time since Leo had appeared at her bakery door, she was looking forward, without fear, to tomorrow, next week, the years ahead. Their story, improbable as it was just beginning. "A little more flour," Maria instructed, watching as Leo's small hands carefully measured the white powder into the mixing bowl. Baking is science. Exact measurements matter. 4 months had passed since the court hearing, and their routine had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings began early, with Maria starting the day's first batch of bread while Leo slept upstairs. By the time he awoke for school, the bakery would be filling with the scent of fresh pastries. Afternoons found Leo at the counter doing homework between customers or in the kitchen, learning to shape rolls and decorate cookies. "Like this?" he asked, leveling the measuring cup with the back of a knife as she taught him. "Perfect," Maria approved. "You're becoming a real baker." Leo beamed at the praise, a sight that still made Maria's heart swell. Those moments were coming more frequently now, unguarded smiles, spontaneous hugs, the gradual relaxation of his vigilance as he came to trust that this home, this life with her, was secure. The bell above the shop door jingled, and Sophia entered, bringing a gust of autumn air with her. "Just in time," Maria called. "We're testing a new cinnamon roll recipe." "My favorite," Sophia said, settling onto her usual stool. She watched them work together, a smile crinkling her eyes. "You two look more alike every day, you know." Leo glanced up, flour dusting his dark hair. "Really? You think I look like Maria?" "Something in the eyes," Sophia said. "The way you concentrate, very much the same." Maria caught Sophia's wink and smiled. They both knew it was more likely Leo's resemblance to Antonio that Sophia was seeing, but the comment clearly pleased him. "Ms. Winters called," Maria told Sophia while Leo carefully rolled out the dough. "She found some photos of Leo's brother, my first son, in the Castillos' adoption files. She's sending copies for us." Leo looked up, his hand stilling. "Really? What was his name?" "Gabriel," Maria said softly. "Gabriel Antonio Castillo." "Gabriel?" Leo repeated, testing the name. "I wish I could have known him." "Me too," Maria said, gently squeezing his shoulder. "But we can make a special place for his photos. Remember him together." Leo nodded, returning to his dough with renewed concentration. After the guardianship was approved, Maria had reached out to Miguel again, seeking more information about Antonio. He'd provided photographs, stories, even some of Antonio's artwork. Together, she and Leo had created a small memory corner in their apartment, pictures of Antonio, of the Castillos, and soon of Gabriel. A visual reminder of the complex threads of love and loss that had brought them together. "The apartment is looking better," Sophia commented, changing the subject. "Those new curtains brighten the whole place." Maria nodded, grateful for her friend's tact. Leo picked the color, and we're looking at bunk beds next week, something sturdier than the pull-out couch. The changes to their living space had been gradual but significant. Leo's presence had transformed the apartment from Maria's solitary refuge to a proper home. His baseball trophies shared space with her cookbooks. His backpack hung next to her coat. His favorite cereals lined up beside her coffee in the kitchen cabinet. "Mrs. Alvarez says there's a 2-bedroom opening up in her building next month," Sophia mentioned casually. "Ground floor with a small garden." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Are you checking apartments for us now?" "Just keeping my ears open," Sophia said innocently. "That bakery money won't last forever. You need room to grow." The bakery money was Sophia's term for the unexpected windfall that had arrived a month after the guardianship was approved. A life insurance policy the Castillos had maintained, with Leo named as beneficiary. It wasn't a fortune, but it provided a financial cushion Maria had never expected. allowing her to make improvements to both the bakery and their living quarters. "We're doing just fine right here," Maria assured her. "Aren't we, Leo?" But Leo was looking thoughtful, his hands automatically crimping the edges of a pastry. "A garden would be cool," he said. "We could grow herbs for the bakery, rosemary and basil and stuff." Maria blinked, surprised by his practical suggestion. "That's actually a really good idea." "I know," he said with mock superiority, making Sophia chuckle. As they worked, customers came and went. Regulars who now greeted Leo by name, new faces drawn by the increasingly popular specialty items that Maria had begun offering. The neighborhood was changing slowly, with new businesses opening and young families moving in. The bakery, once barely surviving, was thriving. Later, after Sophia had gone home with a box of fresh rolls and the last customer had departed, Maria and Leo sat at a small table by the window, eating the fruits of their labor. "These are better than the old recipe," Leo declared, licking cinnamon from his fingers. "Agreed," Maria said. "We'll add them to the regular menu, the Leo special." His face lit up. "Really? You'd name them after me? Why not? You helped perfect." "The recipe," Leo contemplated this, clearly pleased. "Maybe we could make other specials too. With different names." "Like what?" "Like the Antonio almond cake, or Gabriel's golden bread." Maria's breath caught at the suggestion. So simple, yet so profound in its acceptance of their shared history. "I think that's a wonderful idea," she said softly. Leo nodded, satisfied, then asked casually, "So, are we going to look at that apartment? The one with the garden?" Maria laughed. "You and Sophia ganging up on me. Is the pull-out couch that uncomfortable?" "It's not that," Leo said, suddenly serious. "It's just, if I'm staying for good, maybe we should have a real place, with my own room and stuff." "You are staying for good," Maria assured him firmly. "Nothing will change that." "Then we should plan for it," Leo said, with the practical certainty of a child who has known too much uncertainty. "Make it official." Maria studied him, this remarkable boy who had appeared at her door like a ghost from her past and who now represented her future. In 4 short months he had changed everything. "Okay," she agreed. "We'll look at the apartment, start planning for the long term." Leo nodded, satisfied, and returned to his cinnamon roll, but Maria caught the small smile that he tried to hide. Behind his napkin, the smile of a child who was finally beginning to believe in permanence. Outside the bakery window, autumn leaves swirled in the evening breeze. Inside, warmth and the scent of cinnamon wrapped around them like a promise of winters and springs and summers to come, of a future neither had dared to imagine just a few months before. "We should take a picture," Maria said suddenly, "for our memory corner, to mark this day." "What's special about today?" Leo asked, genuinely puzzled. Maria smiled. "Today is the day we decided to stop thinking of this as temporary. Today is the day we became a family, not just in court documents, but in our plans for the future." Leo considered this, then nodded solemnly. "That is pretty special." Maria retrieved her phone and set the timer, then hurried to sit beside Leo. They leaned close together, cinnamon rolls in hand, identical smiles on their faces as the camera captured the moment, not their first together, and now they both knew, far from their last. Dawn painted the kitchen in soft gold as Maria shaped dough with practiced hands, the familiar rhythm as comforting as a heartbeat. 6 months had passed since she and Leo had moved into the ground floor apartment with its small garden, now sprouting the first herbs of spring. 6 months of gradually expanding roots, of transforming a house into a home, of becoming not just guardian and ward, but something deeper, a family forged through choice rather than only biology. "You started without me," came a sleepy voice. From the doorway, Maria turned to find Leo rubbing his eyes, hair tousled from sleep. "It's Saturday," she said. "You're supposed to sleep in." "It's a special day," Leo reminded her, moving to wash his hands at the sink. "I want to help with everything." Maria smiled, making space for him at the counter. Today marked exactly 1 year since Leo had first appeared at her bakery door. 1 year since that rain-soaked night when she had recognized Antonio's eyes in a hungry child's face and felt her world shift on its axis. "Sourdough?" Leo asked. Eyeing the dough, Maria nodded. "Your favorite. And cinnamon rolls later for the party." The party had been Leo's idea, a small gathering to commemorate what he called their finding day. Sophia would come, of course, and Miguel, who had become a regular visitor, sharing stories of Antonio that helped Leo connect with his biological father's memory. Nancy Torres had promised to stop by, as had Ms. Winters from the adoption agency. Even Mrs. Alvarez, their landlady and now friend, would join them. "Do you think people will like the scrapbook?" Leo asked, expertly folding the dough with the technique Maria had taught him. "They'll love it," Maria assured him. The scrapbook had been their winter project, a visual history of their unlikely journey. Photographs of Antonio and the Castillos, shared pages with snapshots of Leo's first day of school in the neighborhood, his baseball team photos, images of the two of them flower-covered in the bakery kitchen. A tangible record of lives connected, across time in ways no one could have predicted. "I added the last page last night," Leo confided. "It's a surprise." "For the party?" "For you." Before Maria could question him further, the bakery phone rang. Their business line, which they'd had installed in the new apartment to accommodate the growing number of special orders. "That's probably Mrs. Peterson. About her anniversary cake?" Maria said, wiping her hands. "Keep working that dough. It needs 5 more minutes of kneading." When she returned from the call, Leo was staring at the calendar hanging on the refrigerator, his expression thoughtful. "What is it?" Maria asked. "I was just thinking," he said slowly. "About what I want to do for Gabriel's birthday next month." Maria's heart squeezed. April 17th, a date that had once brought only pain, now approached with bittersweet remembrance. The photos Ms. Winters had provided showed a smiling baby, then a serious toddler with Antonio's eyes and Maria's chin. The Castillos had documented his short life lovingly, sending school pictures and holiday photos to the adoption agency each year, never knowing that one day these images would help his biological mother and half-brother piece together their shared history. "What were you thinking?" Maria asked gently. "I thought maybe we could make a special bread," Leo suggested. "Gabriel's golden bread like we talked about before, and donate some to the Children's Hospital." He looked up at her anxiously. "Is that okay? To use his name like that?" Maria swallowed past the lump in her throat. "It's more than okay," she assured him. "It's perfect." Leo nodded, returning to his dough with renewed purpose. "I think he would have liked baking too," he said confidently. "If he'd lived. It must be in our genes or something." "Maybe so," Maria agreed, marveling at how easily Leo now claimed their biological connection, a connection he had once questioned with such wariness. The morning passed in comfortable industry as they prepared for the day's celebration. Leo's hands, no longer thin and hesitant, worked alongside hers with growing confidence. Occasionally, he would hum under his breath, a habit he'd picked up from Maria without realizing it. As the first batch of bread went into the oven, Leo disappeared into his bedroom, returning with a small wrapped package. "I know we're doing gifts later," he said, suddenly shy, "but I wanted to give you this one now. Just us." Maria accepted the package, carefully unwrapping it to reveal a small wooden box, clearly handmade. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft fabric, lay a delicate silver pendant in the shape of a small loaf of bread. "Leo," she breathed, "it's beautiful. Did you make this?" He shook his head. "Miguel helped me find it. He knows a jeweler." He shifted nervously from foot to foot. "Look on the back." Maria turned the pendant over to find 3 names engraved in tiny, perfect script. Maria, Gabriel, Leo. "So we're always together." "Leo," he explained, watching her face anxiously. "All 3 of us." Tears sprang to Maria's eyes as she clutched the pendant. "It's the most beautiful gift I've ever received," she whispered. "There's a card, too," Leo said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. Inside was a handmade card, decorated with careful drawings of bread loaves and cinnamon rolls. But it was the signature that made Maria's breath catch. "Love, your son, Leo." It was the first time he had called himself her son, the first time he had claimed the relationship in writing. Maria looked up to find him watching her intently, a mixture of vulnerability and hope in his expression. "Is it okay," he asked softly, "to call myself that, your son?" Maria gathered him into her arms, holding him close as tears flowed freely down her cheeks. "It's more than okay," she whispered into his hair. "It's who you are, who we are together." Leo's arms tightened around her waist. "I thought a lot about it," he said, his voice muffled against her shoulder, "about the Castillos and biology, and what makes someone your real parent." "And what did you decide?" Maria asked gently. Leo pulled back to look at her, his expression serious beyond his 11 years. "That it's about choice. The Castillos chose me. You chose me, even when you didn't have to, and now I'm choosing you back." He took a deep breath. "So that makes us real, Mom." The word, so simple, so profound, hung in the air between them. Maria had never asked for it, had respected his need to maintain the boundary of her name. To hear it now, freely given, was a gift beyond measure. "Yes," she agreed, her voice thick with emotion. "That makes us very real." The timer dinged, announcing the bread was ready. Together, they moved to the oven, the familiar routine grounding them after the emotional moment. "Perfect rise," Maria noted, as Leo carefully removed the golden loaf. "We make a good team," he said with satisfaction, as they placed the fresh bread. On the cooling rack, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating their workspace in warm light. Outside, the small herb garden was coming alive with new growth. Inside, the scent of fresh bread filled the air, the scent of home, of continuity, of promise. From barefoot boy sleeping on cold concrete to beloved son kneading dough in a sunlit kitchen, Leo's journey had come full circle. And Maria, who had once given up a child out of necessity, had been granted a second chance she could never have imagined. "Happy finding day," Leo said, bumping his shoulder against hers affectionately. "Happy finding day," Maria echoed, wrapping an arm around his shoulders as they stood together in the golden light of morning, watching their bread cool and listening to the sounds of their shared life beginning anew. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more emotional tales that remind us how life's most painful moments can sometimes lead to unexpected healing.